the institution of the monarchy.
And Gary's with me now. So if he's still in custody, in a custody suite, has he seen the inside of a cell?
He may well have done. It looks as though the police are very keen to play this by the book. And in those circumstances, yes, he would have gone into a custody suite. He would have been searched. He might have had a DNA swab, fingerprinted. And yeah, while he was waiting for his lawyer to turn up, because he was ambushed by all of this, wasn't expecting it at 8 o'clock this morning, he might well have been sitting in a police cell with a loo and a bed and not much else.
Really?
So if the police are playing it by the book, you wonder also about this whole business of him being arrested. Lord Mandelson wasn't arrested, but his properties were searched. But he was. Is that because they actually want to go even further, playing it further by the book, throwing the book at him in a sense, and showing that they're not treating him in any special way? Or did they actually arrest him to search his property, maybe because these investigations are even more advanced than the ones with Lord Mandelson? We don't know. What we probably do know is the answer to that question that was shouted out at the King. How do you feel? I think we can be fairly confident how he feels. I mean, utterly horrified by this, because at the heart of the monarchy for him is duty, service, rectitude. I think the royal family had some pretty public sort of run-ins with sort of moral rectitude in recent times, but he thought duty and service were the pillars that were still there, and they are wobbling tonight.
Gary Gibbon. Well, our chief correspondent Alex Thompson is outside Wood Farm in Sandringham, Andrew's home, where officers have been conducting a search of the property. And Aisha Tull is outside his former residence, the Royal Lodge in Windsor, where there's also been some police activity today. First, Alex.
Yes, let's remind ourselves first off, this arrested man is, of course, entirely innocent in law as things stand. This is a complex operation apparently spearheaded by Thames Valley Police. Now, they're headquartered about 7 or 8 miles north of Oxford, so a 3-hour journey over to here in North Norfolk. A considerable number of officers involved, 6 unmarked police cars in here at 8 in the morning to search the premises, but also get into the personal effects of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, not least his mobile phone and his computers. At least one newspaper reporting tonight that the government was given a tip-off, the Home Office in advance, and thereby the Prime Minister. The police decided that was best practice in, shall we say, an unusual case like this. But also consider the police didn't do what they had powers and would quite often do in a case like this, which is simply invite their suspect to come in and discuss it at a mutual time. They didn't do that. They just wanted to get in there, make an arrest, an ambush, preserve the element of surprise at what was not a dawn raid, but 8 o'clock, something close to it. In short, they wanted to get up a posse.
It's like they really are making an effort to sort of turn the whole thing into a big parade, almost like what they was doing with Donald Trump when they kind of wanted him to do the thingy walk, and they definitely wanted to have his mugshot. They haven't gone this far with Andrew, but it's along the same lines, whether you feel he deserves it or not.
And they did.
Alex Thompson. Now let's go to Aisha Tull.
Well, this is the Berkshire address that police mentioned in that statement, of course. And as Alex said, we're about 3 hours away from where he is in the Sandringham estate. But let me just recap you on what was going on here earlier today. This is Royal Lodge. We're just outside the gates. The private residence is secluded away back there. But we know that searches have been going on, and we know that police have been in and out of here. We've seen the vehicles going in. Royal Lodge, of course, is a really significant address for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. That 30-room manor is where he called his home for 2 decades with his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson. This, in Windsor, is also where he was last photographed, riding a horse, driving a car, going about his business. That was until a couple of weeks ago in February when he was moved to Norfolk. But now, Royal Lodge will be known as the royal address that was searched by police. And I asked Thames Valley Police whether they finished their searches, conducted them, at what stage are they at, but they have not responded.
Aisha Tull. Well, joining me now from central London is the former advisor to Yvette Cooper and Home Affairs specialist Danny Shaw.
Flip around
and
for the
here
moment,
with me outside Buckingham Palace, the royal commentator Sarah Houston. Sarah, first of all, I mean, unprecedented is an overused word in the media. But this is unprecedented and monumental.
Absolutely seismic.
I like the way
we are in.
James O'Brien looks at these
isn't it these days, breaking news. But in the moments that have passed since I told you 6 unmarked police cars appeared to have arrived at the King's estate in Norfolk, Sandringham, where his disgraced younger brother, Andrew Windsor, currently resides. In those moments, he has reportedly been arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. That, at the moment, is all anybody knows. But it is, in the context of events, dear boy, events, it's a cataclysmic moment for the royal family, and because the royal family is so intrinsic to this country, intrinsic to both perceptions of and constitutional and unconstitutional realities of, it's enormous. It's pretty close to unprecedented.
Massive stuff.
In fact, it is unprecedented. The former Prince Andrew, the younger brother of the King, has been arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. This, of course, as a consequence of some of the revelations to recently emerge in the so-called...
I'll tell you something. I believe there's no way this would have happened when the Queen was surviving. Firstly, she was his youngest, I do believe, and some would say his favourite, I don't know. But I don't think this will happen when she was around. She has too much influence. She had too much of a tight, masterly, I don't want to say control, balance of the family during her long reign. Too much respect around the world. And, she kind of blended him in to the whole mix of the royal representatives. They do say that she covered the costs of his court case and, for better or worse, made that go away. Now, the King, Charles, him being his brother, they say, am I my brother's keeper? So he probably hasn't got the same kind of responsibility in terms of his responsibilities to the entire family and the continuation of the royal family. So priorities probably have shifted. Some will say, I don't want to say sacrificial in terms of the survival of the royal family and then being seen to be treated like everybody else. Andrew is probably what you can regard as low-hanging fruit. And on this occasion, he's the one who seems to have been put forward. And we'll find out anyway whether they've got proper, strong, inconclusive evidence or it turns out another way. Going to be very, very, very media-focused days and weeks to come on this story. It's going to dominate.
Epstein files. But at first glance, and I don't know how many times this morning I'm going to have to remind you of 2 things. The first...
And just to sidetrack, the Epstein files, we're probably just at the start of this whole thing. And, Andrew's probably the first of many, many heads that are going to roll.
Will be that Andrew Windsor denies all wrongdoing, and the second will be that this is all anybody knows at the moment, even though it's a developing story, breaking news. The only available facts can be contained within a single sentence. But you know that this is not about the girls and young women who feature in the Epstein files, sometimes in very close proximity to Andrew, both in photographs and in reportage. But
the twist is, it's the girls that, Andrew was involved with vis-a-vis Epstein that probably most people thought they were going to be his Achilles heel or the thing that was going to bring him down. And out of nowhere comes this, misuse of political classified information, or however they're going to put it. And who would have predicted this a few weeks back or a month or so ago? It is how it is as it unfolds.
But about the possible or the alleged sharing of information, commercial information, to which he would have had access as a consequence of his curious role as...
My correction. It's not classified, but still it's information that I don't think he was at liberty to pass on with his role as whatever he was doing in business at the time.
As a sort of make-believe trade envoy for the United Kingdom. And here we are. It's a moment of... Well, I've never done anything like this before. When breaking news involves the royal family, it is normally, sadly, a death or a funeral, possibly the occasional marriage, but they never take us by surprise. Breaking news about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, as he calls himself at the moment, being arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. And I have to be honest with you, this is live radio, and there's no earthly way that anything else of comparable importance is going to occur in the next hour, and I might just repeat myself until then. Obvious responses include, I bet he's sweating now, as about 30 people have already texted me. And I was going to ask you, and I suspect I still will, but if you didn't have an answer lined up before this event, before this moment, then I suspect you've probably got one lined up now. I was talking to Eleanor before we came on air. I'm obsessed with the Clapham Omnibus. Younger listeners won't know what that involves. The Clapham Omnibus is a sort of byword for public conversation. Will the man on the Clapham Omnibus care? Or will the man on the Clapham Omnibus be talking about this? It's very much of the age in which the phrase was coined, because, of course, most people don't travel by bus these days, and it could just as likely be a woman. But that was the phrase, the man on the Clapham Omnibus. And they're the subjects that I... what's the word that I want? They're the subjects that I simultaneously love and hate the most. The subjects about which we just don't know how deep the public interest is. Until this point, I'd been saying in pre-programme conversations, I just have this weird sense that something else has to happen before the gravity of the situation will become clear, will properly crystallise. There is always denial of any wrongdoing, and it still may, of course, turn out that Andrew Windsor has no case to answer on this, the question of why he would pay £12 million to a young woman accusing him of rape when there was absolutely no wrongdoing is a question that, of course, only him and his family could answer. But the idea of not knowing, nobody knows. It's like my old geography teacher, you remember? Don't know, don't need to know, nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody can actually measure, even in the days of the internet. I could probably have a word with the online team and they would tell me what is currently gathering most of your interest, what is attracting most of your interest. But that doesn't necessarily translate into conversations. It doesn't necessarily translate into questions I can ask you and you can ring in to answer. But the idea that this is no longer enormous disappeared 8 minutes ago. The idea, the argument, the opinion that this is just another who cares about the royal family? Who cares? The idea that this is not an existential threat to the actual monarchy. Would you go that far? That's probably going to be the phone-in. This is one of those rare moments where you can hear the programme take shape in my brain exactly as the words emerge from my mouth in an even more fresh and entirely unplanned way than normal. But this is the moment. 9 minutes ago, this morning, on the 66th birthday of Andrew Windsor, the monarchy came under, I would argue, greater pressure than it has at any point since the death in Paris of Diana, Princess of Wales, and the hideously inadequate response of her estranged family. Not to mention, of course, the brutal treatment of her sons, particularly the youngest, compelled to walk like a lost boy behind that coffin in an attempt to shore up the public relations.
Had the Queen been around, yes, no chance. He would have been dealt with like this in this way. I mean, I don't know if it's really the attitude or the view to, who he is in the royal family. They kind of tend to see him as the one who's always getting into trouble, etc. I just think there's too much respect for the Queen and the way they kind of kept the image of the royal family at that point in time intact. Now, we're in a different era, completely different phase and stage.
Of much older members of the family who had failed signally to recognise the public mood. This is a story of an altogether different order. This is an entirely different moment. But in the context of pressure brought to bear upon the palace, in the context of this question, how much trouble is the palace in at the moment? I would argue possibly more than it has ever been in before. 10 minutes after 10 is the time. As part of the investigation, a statement from Thames Valley Police. We have today arrested a man in his 60s from Norfolk on suspicion of misconduct in public office and are carrying out searches at addresses in Berkshire and Norfolk. The man remains in police custody at this time. We will not be naming the arrested man as per national...
Very sad for Andrew Windsor. Not so sad for those people who are looking to bring him, if not down a notch, down completely. And some of those people are probably looking to take down the royal family. That's a larger debate. Monarchists, pro-monarchists, Republicans and anti-monarchists and all the rest. We have to touch on that at some point. But for now, the focus is on Andrew.
Guidance. Please also remember that the case is now active. This is for you as well, and for me, by the way, not just the statement that's been issued by Thames Valley Police. Please also remember that this case is now active, so care should be taken with any publication to avoid being in contempt of court. Yeah. Assistant Chief Constable Oliver Wright said, following a thorough assessment, we have now opened an investigation into this allegation of misconduct in public office. It is important that we protect the integrity and objectivity of our investigation as we work with our partners to investigate this alleged offence. We understand the significant public...
Well, I agree with all of that. The only question I would ask is, why now? Why didn't this come up 6 months ago, a year ago? This is stuff that happened, I think, way back. You're talking about Afghanistan. So why is it Epstein saga? That's probably the answer, or something to do with that. And the climate, and the fact that the media and many other people have been vying for Andrew's blood or for something. He had his titles removed, kicked out of his home, but that was not enough. A bigger takedown was required. And I think we're seeing the beginnings of said such thing as this takedown.
Interest in this case, and we will provide updates at the appropriate time. And the Press Association confirming that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has been arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office, Thames Valley Police said.
Massive.
So, with the constant caveats that will run through at least the first hour of this programme, like Blackpool through a stick of rock, he denies all wrongdoing and no further details are known. I think we can still ask the question of how much trouble the royal family is currently in.
Good question. To all of you lot on IG, CornerSpeak 360, thank you very much for tuning in. Everybody here on YouTube, thank you very much for tuning in. CornerSpeak, myself, Owen Uradier, and been with you, touching on this major breaking UK news story, global news story. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, they've started the process of taking him down, not on the expected Epstein allegations, instead on other related allegations, this time to do with politics and misuse of information. So thank you for being here with myself and you here at CornerSpeak. As I usually say, as the sign says, be good, be safe, be creative. For now, I'm out.